6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Please rise in body and or spirit for our gathering hymn, I Wish I Knew How.
Good morning. That was a rousing song. Thank you. I am Bill Payton, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees. And how many of you attended our wonderful function here yesterday? So Karen Bush and a few of her friends would like to say a few words. Karen?
No. Yes, I'm live. Great. Fun. Well, you all made it happen. I have just a few words to say about the auction and about our community. First of all, you like to hear Don Brin play piano. "98 people. 98. Secondly, you like to go to Dale Anderson and Mary Montgomery's parties. And then beyond that, I just have to say, you really like to go out for meals. You like to go to parties. You like to learn things. You like to go to movies. You like to go to the performing arts. And in general, I think what we all saw yesterday is that we love being together and sharing the fun and sharing our community. If I may have the next slide, please. Oh, let's come back to that. I'm sorry, that's business. No, next, skip a slide, please. Okay, these people, not all of them are on the stage, but these are the folks who made it happen. So, Vicki Carey completely reorganized how we recruit and organize the volunteers, and it was the smoothest we've ever seen it. Laura Campbell, who's not up here, gorgeous graph that we had on the catalog and that you saw posted various places. Terry Holsinger, despite the fact that she took off for Japan, has been a key player in the technology, and they're the people who handle all the generating of the bid sheets and the catalog. And Scott Rubin, although alphabetically he's not next, Scott has done just a yeoman's job of managing all the technology for us. Ed with Dee Witter did all of the facilities. So you remember what this room looked like yesterday? Yeah. Heather and Ethan, oh my goodness, on a limited budget. I couldn't believe what they produced yesterday. Fabulous. And Ava, all the communications that we had, that fabulous kickoff, and all the great information. I want to tell you that several of us have received emails that this was the best, smoothest running auction we've ever had. Thank you for making that happen. Did I miss it? Okay, just let's go back to that slide. I'm sorry, I had them in the wrong order. I was a little tired last night. So just some reminders, by Thursday, maybe Wednesday, but certainly by Thursday, check your email for your winnings and an invoice. There's a link in there you can use to pay for your invoice. Or on Sunday, the next 2 Sundays, we'll have a table out in the courtyard, and you can bring cash or a check and pay for it then. Meanwhile, I'm not going to say sayonara because I just learned that's permanently, but adieu. And I will turn this back over to Jay or to Bill. To Bill.
Thank you. Well, it was really quite an event, so I really thank that group. I think they need one more round of applause. If you end up with an unexpected bid item on your sheet, I was just grabbing random numbers for the hire. So I welcome all of you into the sanctuary of UUSRQ, a sanctuary that brings the meaning of community to me. It brings a little peace to me, and in these tough days, it brings a little bit of hope. It's a sanctuary of love and of good people, and we hope you come often. I especially want to welcome our visitors, both on campus and on live stream. We welcome you to find out more about us in Unitarian Universalism, and you are welcome to participate in any of our events. And you can do both by checking out our website, uucssarasota.com, or you can click on the link on our homepage and register in our virtual guest book. And of course, you can sign the guest book right outside the sanctuary. As always, we invite all of you to join us for coffee and conversation in the courtyard. But like always, we have some announcements. We encourage you to always read the Contact, which is our newsletter, which really lists all the activities that are going on here. But just want to remind you that next Sunday is the ever-popular potluck. Of course, Art Magazine says in order to stay healthy, seniors should stay away from potlucks. But what does Art know anyway? Also next Sunday, our congregational conversations continue, with focus being the board goal to review our mission and vision. But today, if you are interested in becoming a Unitarian Universalist, you should come to Reverend Wolin's office, which is in the Lexau wing, directly opposite the sanctuary, and we invite you to sign our membership book, and we will be there to celebrate with you. Thank you.
Wow, I'll just leave it at that. And also, a little birdie, I shouldn't say that, a little whisper told me that I think we hit our budget on the auction as well, which in addition to having fun, it was a fundraiser. And so again, thank you to all of those, especially Karen Bush, that I know headed it up. And so let's give her a round of applause again. By the way, I am Reverend J. Wolin, the settled minister. Usually I do that if I do the introduction, but I didn't do that today. So our opening reading today is from the Reverend Leslie Takahashi Morris called Marginal Wisdom. They teach us to read in black and white. Truth is this, the rest is false. You are whole or you are broken. Who you love is acceptable or not. Life tells its truth in many yous. But we are taught to think in either or, to believe the teachings of Jesus or Buddha, to believe in the human potential or a power beyond a single will. I am broken or I am powerful. Life embraces multiple truths, speaks of both and of and. We are taught to see in absolutes, good versus evil, male versus female, old versus young, gay versus straight. Let us see the fractions, the spectrum, the margins. Let us open our hearts to the complexity of our worlds. Let us make our lives sanctuaries to nurture our many identities. The day is coming when all will know that the rainbow world is more gorgeous than monochrome, that a river of identities can ebb and flow over the static, stubborn rocks in its course, that the margins actually hold the center. Please join us now in lighting the chalice by reading our new 8th principle that we voted on recently. As we light this chalice, we affirm and promote our 8th principle, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and in our institutions.
Good morning. I always test to see if I'm on. Am I on? Okay, very good. So, this, I'm hoping behind me, is Julius Lester. He is a civil rights activist and a Newbery Honor author. And I tell you this because today I'm going to read a book that he wrote for children in 2006 based on a conversation he has with them about race. So here it is. Let's Talk About Race by Julius Lester and illustrated by Karen Barbour. I am a story, and so are you. So is everyone. My story begins the same way as yours does. I was born on January 27th, 1939. I'm kind of old, huh? Many people and many events are part of my stories and yours too. The names of our parents, whether or not we have brothers or sisters, and what kind of work our parents do or did. My stories and yours have many elements, such as our favorite food, our hobbies, our religion, our nationality, and our favorite time of day. Oh, and there's something else that's part of my story, and it's a part of yours too, and that's what race we are. I'm black. What race are you? And just as I am a story and you are a story, and countries tell stories about themselves, race is a story too. Whether you're black or Asian or Hispanic or white, each race has a story about itself. And that story is almost always the same. My race is better than your race. Some stories are true and some are not. Those who say my race is better than your race are telling a story that is not true. So why would some people say their race is better than another? Well, because they feel bad about themselves, or because they are afraid, or because? And there are other ways that all of us, even me, even you, think that we are better than others. I am better than you because I live in this place or this type of home. I'm better than you because I go to this school. I'm better than you because I'm a boy. I'm better than you because I'm a girl. I'm better than you because my dad or mom makes more money than your dad or mom. I'm better than you because my race or my ethnicity is better. But none of these stories are true, are they? So I do want to tell you a true story, but I need your help. So this is everybody participate here. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to take your fingers and I want you to press it firmly against the skin on the back of your hand. Okay, now I want you to take your same fingers and press them on the hand of the person sitting next to you. Make sure to ask them if it's okay to touch them. Okay? And what you'll find is beneath everyone's skin, we have same hard bones. If you were to go outside without your skin on and without hair on your head, let's see what you would look like. And if I did the same, I would look just like you, and you would look just like me. And what if everyone in the whole world did the same thing and then went about their everyday things like going to school or go to work or play and shop? Everything would be normal, except we would look at each other and we couldn't tell who was a man or who was a woman, who was white or black or Hispanic or Asian. So which story should we believe? The one that says, my race is better than yours? or the one we just discovered for ourselves beneath our skin, that I look like you and you look like me? So when I look at you, what story do I see? Do I see the color of your skin? Do I see the shape of your eyes? Do I see the texture of your hair? Do I look at you and think, oh, I know your story, when I don't even know your name? Or do I look at you and I wonder, what is your name? What do you like? What don't you like? Gee, maybe we like or dislike some of the same things. Your race is not all that you are, and my race is not all that I am. Yes, I am black, but I am also a man with a deep voice, a loud laugh, that lives in a big house in a small town. I am so many more things than my race. To know my story, you have to put together everything I am. Like, I bet you didn't know I had asthma. Beneath the skin, we all look alike, you and me. I'll take off my skin. Will you take off yours? For those of you who have liked the Time for All Ages stories, I invite you to peruse my small library of these books in the courtyard today. Perhaps you will find one that you can purchase at your favorite bookstore to gift to the children or the friends in your life or to your local public library. Because when we lose the ability to talk to each other about difficult topics like race and our shared histories, then it is too easy to stop seeing each other as humans. I now invite our younger UUs to join me in their classrooms as we explore the gift of generosity and acts of kindness. Thank you.
What a beautiful, haunting, and appropriate piece of music. You know, for those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, you've probably seen some of the, how shall I say, spirited conversations about what's going on in the Middle East. So this morning, it's been heavy on my mind, and I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning. Or I should say my dog woke me up at 5 o'clock this morning. No matter what I told him last night that the times were changing, he just didn't listen and woke me up at 5 o'clock. And so I woke up and I wrote this poem, For So the Children Go. Each night a child is murdered is a profane night, whether by beheading, bombing, or baneful neglect. Life is lost, love is lost, innocence is lost, souls are lost, theirs and ours. Each night a child is murdered is a profane night, whether due to adults seeking revenge or power for disrespect from generations past and present, or due to the greed and avarice of our unjust society. A bit of our heart is carved out. Each night a child is murdered is a profane night. No angels herald our actions. No prophets dare rationalize their purpose. No wisdom to glean to save humankind. Just parents sitting beside their child's grave will cry, why? Why? Wondering, when will this madness end? Will it ever end? Each night a child is murdered is a profane night. A time for weeping, a time for lamenting, a time to work for peace. Let us enter into a time for silence now and think of what we can do to help bring more peace into this world. So critical race theory, or been known as CRT, has been in the news a lot the last few years. It's being used to discredit by politicians diversity, equity, and inclusion programs and African American history education. Many states, including Florida, have enacted laws restricting its use with vague wording and stiff penalties meant to discourage teaching any African American history. So in order to understand critical race theory and understand why people are so frightened of it, because obviously they are frightened, otherwise they wouldn't pass laws against it, this summer I enrolled in a week-long critical race theory boot camp that actually was led by Kimberly Crenshaw, a leading academic in that area. And so if I was just to narrow it down to one sentence, and this is a quote I found to be very good, it would be, and I quote, "Racism is not merely the product of learned individual bias or race prejudice, but that racism is a system embedded in American society and the American legal system to facilitate racial inequality." End of quote. There you go. That's all we need to know. No. One sentence, though, cannot define what is a multi-layered academic field of study. And I think it is ironic that the government is trying to silence an educational theory that says systemic racism is created by laws by passing a law denying it. Now, critical race theory actually started way back in the 70s, 1970s, and has accelerated more recently as it became clearer that the implementation of the civil rights laws in the 1960s, which was dramatic progress in its day, but many felt it did not bring about the degree of hoped-for changes to improve opportunities and outcomes for many BIPOC individuals, BIPOC, Black, Indigenous, people of color. So to deny, this is the thing that always I found so interesting. To deny teaching critical race theory is sort of like saying we are not going to teach economics at all, right, because I don't like the University of Chicago's economic policy paper on deregulation, which, for the record, I personally and vehemently disagree with that policy paper, right? But you can always find something you don't like about a particular theory of anything, but to say you're not going to study because you don't like one particular thing is not an educational integrity. So I just want, I could give a sermon every week for the rest of the year on what critical race theory is, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to provide you just a brief overview today. Maybe you won't think it's so brief by the end of the service. But one of the various theories within critical race theory is material determinism versus idealism. According to academic Richard Delgado, idealists hold that racism and discriminations are matters of thinking, mental categorization, attitude, and discourse. If race is a social construction, they propose we as a society can change that construction through images, words, attitudes, unconscious feelings, script, and social teachings. Now, the material determinists, although recognizing the importance of the idealist ideas, look at racism as a way that society allocates privileges and power and determines who gets the material benefits within a society. It focuses on anti-Black prejudice as a rationale for slavery and how that prejudice has been maintained in the structures of our laws. Now, it is true, as critics of CRT argue, that slavery has existed throughout much of human existence. But slavery based on race was a uniquely Western Europe and American experience and creation. So in order to justify slavery in a country whose founding documents stated that all men were created equal, our founders needed to somehow come up with a rationale that slaves were not fully human. So the seed for this idea was planted after the Bacon Rebellion of 1676, 100 years before our revolution. Now, European and African indentured servants and African slaves rose up against the Virginia colony leadership, and soon after the rebellion was defeated, the state of Virginia and then other states passed slave codes that clearly differentiated the status of European and Africans, giving workers with European heritage independence and status over Africans. And those of African heritage were declared hereditary slaves. And this is the beginning of what critical race theorists call interest convergence theory. Yeah, I'm just going to say this. I have never heard anybody talk about this in high school or below. Okay, this is really clearly all graduate school type of work. But I still think it's important to know interest convergence theory is how our white culture allows more freedom to certain groups when circumstances require it. It is argued that even desegregation and the ending of the Jim Crow laws were due to the needs of the white power culture. After the Korean War, the Justice Department finally interceded on the side of the NAACP in the major school desegregation case, which ended up being Brown versus Brown. And later, historians have found out that the Justice Department's response was due, and there's written notes about this, was due to the United States' interest in improving its image in the eyes of the third world in the scope of the Cold War with Russia, as that was accelerating, and as well as a way to quell labor strife of African Americans returning from war. Now, if interest convergence is right, I see this as a hopeful sign. As the world becomes more interdependent, people with multicultural skills will become more valuable in our white society, and then it will change the white society. Depending on which school of thought you follow, materialists would say you have to change the physical circumstances of minorities' lives before racism will abate. This group would support unions, immigration quotas, ending the school-to-prison pipeline, ending mass incarceration, ending outsourcing of jobs, and reparations. If one is in the idealist camp, issues of hate speech, stereotyping, peace circles, increasing representation of minorities would take precedent to change people's perceptions about minorities, which they believe will lead to more equitable outcomes. But again, of course, I think this is a false binary, right? It is not either or, but both and. Another emerging issue in CRT is the question of essentialism versus anti-essentialism. Essentialism is the focus on the question of whether there is a common factor that impacts all oppressed people, or so that there could be a united front that combines all oppressed people. This sounds very theological to me as well, right? Is there an underlying reality that underlies all of our theological beliefs? Or do we all have different issues that we need to work together, right, to solve, right? So now the problem with the essentialism is that some groups of people or identities are often ignored, such as African American women during the civil rights movement of the 1960s. And we're seeing more study now of intersectionality of identities, how things are different challenges based on multiple identities. So you might have a challenge, let's say, just being a woman. But also, if you're a person of color and a woman, you have two challenges that are different than just being a woman. Or if you are a lesbian and person of color and a woman, those you have overlapping and intersecting oppressions. And we often see the power structures divide and conquer, such as with the response to Bacon's rebellion, or the intentional divisions created between African American and Jewish communities, or the Latinx and the LGBTQ communities. Working together, though, the truth is we are more powerful together, working together for collective liberation. All of us together, liberate together. And even we, which I'll talk about a little later, as white people, see, even that, it's hard to just say that. We as white people, right, we need to be liberated as well from our own mindsets, right? We have to break barriers in this white-dominated world. And it's interesting, this seems to break down along the same lines of the materialists and the idealists. We're talking about this whole question of nationalism versus assimilation. Also, a theological perspective, if you think about things, and a political perspective. Right? Some feel that minorities should embrace their culture and their origins, while others feel they are doing more good breaking barriers in a white-dominated world. And again, that does seem to break down along the same lines of materialists and idealists. Materialists and nationalists believe in giving up the struggle for integration and to build their own communities to be as strong as possible, utilizing and living within their own culture. I think it's interesting to think about this as the same distinction that Malcolm X and Martin Luther King had early in the 60s, although their views started coming together later on. And I just want to say this. I think we're past that point. There is so much integration and multiracial marriages and relationships that part, I think that ship has passed. But I think there is a challenge in this country that white people do have this expectation that other cultures should assimilate into European cultures and not the other way around. Which brings us to the concept of critical white study, which is also part of critical race theory, which I think also this is what sometimes people struggle with. We don't think of ourselves, white people don't think of ourselves in racial terms, right? Because white is the norm in our society. And I think the norm was epitomized. I was watching an interview with, I think it was Chuck Todd and Nicole Hannah-Jones. She wrote a book, The 1619 Project, and he was interviewing her. And Todd asks Jones, and I quote here, listen here, parents are saying, hey, don't make my kid feel guilty. And a parent of color is going, well, what are you talking about? I need to teach my child reality. And Jones responds, just think about the framing you just said. You said, parents, right? Parents are saying, don't make my kid feel guilty. And then you said parents of color saying, what are you talking about? I need to teach my children reality. It is so embedded, right? The white was silent. It's so embedded in our culture that white is the norm, that white people do not have to identify what is white. Another example of this is when Senator Mitch McConnell was asked how he would respond to voters in minority communities who are concerned that voting restrictions have been enacted in many states that will keep them from the ballot box. And his response was, and I quote, the concern is misplaced because if you look at the statistics, African American voters are voting in just a high percentage as Americans. Right. It reveals this unconscious aspect. Now, I could say he's just an old guy and he misspoke, but I really believe that it reveals an unconscious aspect of his mind, that African American voters were somehow different from Americans. That Americans are white is just assumed. And this was literally true in the founding of our country. Citizenship was only for white land-owning men. Over time, different racial groups tried to be defined by law as white so as to become citizens until that law was changed. African Americans were only granted citizenship with the 14th Amendment after the Civil War. Asian immigrants were not allowed to become naturalized citizens until 1952. You know, we've been working as a country to become more inclusive, and change is not linear, but change is coming. And these laws preventing the teaching of critical race theory is a denial of history. It is the denial of change and the denial of an inclusive future for all of us. So one way that we will feel inclusive, I believe, with everyone here on Sunday is by sharing generously as we take our offering. Please be as generous as you can. For those online or here on your cell phone, there's a link to donate, or in the order of service, a QR code. Let this sacred time begin. And now, one last time for our guest musician. We're going to skip a reading here. No. One more piece, right? Yeah, I'm not going to let you get off without playing another piece. I want to hear you again.
My program is here, so.
And I went a little out of order there. So that's why I hope I didn't throw you too much there, but thank you, Dan. So why is the issue of critical race theory important to us as Unitarian Universalists? Our principles include the free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. The goal of education is not only to educate individuals, but really to teach individuals how to think critically, how to search for truth and meaning. And this was part of my upbringing in the Jewish religion as we studied texts by rabbis arguing over the minute point of words in the Jewish scriptures. It was also part of my public school education, starting as early as middle school. Most memorable for me was reading the books Black Boy by Richard Wright, and The Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison, and the autobiography of Malcolm X, among many others. All three of those books, which I mentioned for a purpose, are on many banned book lists today. These, not in Sarasota County, but in many other counties in Florida and in this country. And these books showed me a window into worlds I was unaware of. It helped me understand the lives of my fellow students from different backgrounds. Because, you know, despite what you might see in some of these feel-good movies, when we're hanging around on the basketball court playing ball together, we're not talking about race, okay? We're just not. And so this was something that at least was able to give me an insight. It's important and beneficial for white people to understand this history. The criticism of CRT seemed to explode after the publication of the 1619 Project by Nicole Hannah-Jones, who won the Pulitzer Prize for it, by the way. What seemed to galvanize critics was her supposition that the founding of this country should be traced back to the date 1619, when the first slave arrived from Africa here in the United States, and not 1776, when we had our revolution. Now, you can make legitimate arguments for and against this thesis, but it is hard to argue against that American enslavement of Africans was an integral part of the founding of this country. One of our largest complaints against the King of England in the Declaration of Independence was that England was fomenting uprisings of slaves in the colonies. That was one of the top complaints. Slavery was codified in our founding constitution and lasted until we fought a civil war about it. Even after being emancipated, we allowed Jim Crow laws, mass incarceration of African Americans, differentiated sentencing for similar crimes for African Americans, the school-to-prison pipeline, which suspends and refers for detention African American youth at a greater percentage than white youth for the same offenses. We are not in a post-racial world. Race still matters in so many ways and areas, including jobs, education, housing, access to medical care. And in reviewing the Florida Stop Woke Law, which I was trying to track that down through Lexis and where I think it's still it's still not in law yet. But the following line in the law surprised me. It claimed a divisive concept as one in which, and I quote, any individual should feel discomfort, guilt, anguish, or any other form of psychological distress on account of that individual's race or sex. Now, end quote. Now, of course, new learning is going to cause some discomfort. Our Unitarian Universalist faith asks us to challenge the status quo, as we did theologically in the 1800s, challenging the normative view of Christianity and religion overall. We believe that revelation is on going. Searching for truth, though, should not cause anguish or distress. It should cause us to be curious. It should cause us and give us the feeling of awe that there is more that we do not know. And so to understand that history is often based on the perspective of who is telling the story. So let us listen to each other's stories. Our country cannot be whole until we face the truth about our past. We cannot allow propaganda and some outright lies taint our educational system. You know, the law says we should not make white people feel guilty. That's basically what it's saying. For something that happened before even our ancestors arrived on these shores. But I really think that is a misperception. I mean, I'll be honest, I certainly don't feel guilty. Of course, my ancestors before me struggled and worked hard to put me in a position to achieve things, and I have faced struggles and worked hard to achieve what I have achieved. But BIPOC individuals, again, black, indigenous, people of color, face those same challenges, but they also face additional challenges due to discriminatory attitudes and laws over and above all of the challenges I face. Racial profiling, mass incarceration, job, health, environmental discrimination, as I mentioned before. So no, I don't feel guilty. But what I do feel is compassion and responsibility to make right the past and current wrongs of our country. And until we do so, until we recognize the challenges that our siblings of color face, until we take action to right the wrongs of our country's founding and our history, then we are all culpable. We need to take the time to educate ourselves, our children, and everyone's children. It is time to make a change in our society. It is time to recognize the historical and current harm that has been done. It is time to make amends as a country. It is time to be redeemed as a country. May it be so. Thank you for the gift of your extra time here today. Thank you. I invite you to rise in body and or spirit for our closing hymn, One More Step, number 168. I don't know why I say 168. We don't have the hymnals. Closing words are On the Brink again by Reverend Leslie Takahashi Morris. All that we have ever loved and all that we have ever been stands with us on the brink of all that we aspire to create. A deeper peace, a larger love, a more embracing hope, a greater generosity of spirit, a deeper joy in this life that we share together. May it be so. Let us extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Thank you all for your presence here today. It's greatly appreciated. And thank you as well for the beautiful, beautiful music. Thank you.